Now, how many transgender people do you know personally? If the answer is none, or none that you know of, you'll understand why the transgender community feel it is a big deal when public figures come forward and identify themselves as transgender. So it is a big deal. A huge name in the US has done that. As Bruce Jenner, he was a US Olympic gold medal winning decathlete in 1976. More recently, a big reality TV star. Now, she has graced the front page of Vanity Fair with a striking image from Annie Leibovitz and her new identity, Caitlyn. The most famous trans person in the world is how some American media are describing her.
Bruce always had to tell a lie. He was always living that lie. Every day, he always had a secret from morning till night. Caitlyn doesn't have any secrets. As soon as the Vanity Fair cover comes out, I'm free.
Well, with such rapid change in social attitudes on sexuality to L, G and B, are we witnessing a big change now in attitudes to the T of LGBT? With me here in the studio is the journalist Paris Lees, and joining us from New York is transgender activist and writer Meredith Talusan. Thank you both for joining us. Can we just start on the photo? Paris, there has been enormous excitement about this photo. I think Caitlyn picked up 1 million Twitter followers in 4 hours, which is quite a feat. Were you excited by the photo?
I was terribly excited. She says she hasn't got any secrets now, but I want to know what the secret to her skin and her hair is. I mean, she looks amazing, you know, there's no question about it. And, you know, when I first saw it, I thought, come on, this is problematic on so many different levels. You know, she's 65, she's sexualising herself, she's getting all the bits up. There's so much for the haters to kind of jump on and criticise. And I just love it. It just fills me with absolute joy, and I'm just so happy to see her finally grabbing her life with both hands.
Meredith, are you quite... you wrote in The Guardian today, you have some concerns about the way a beautiful photo kind of defines our attitude towards the transgender people.
Yes, that's true. I do think that even though the photo is wonderful and it's certainly an iconic image, I do think that it's also really important to emphasize that, as Paris said, that it requires a certain amount of money and a certain amount of privilege in order to be able to present oneself as a trans woman in that way. And I wanted to express that it's really important for us to keep that in mind as we praise and affirm Caitlyn Jenner's identity.
Yeah. I mean, it could just be very good work by Annie Leibovitz, right? I mean, it's a photo, right? I mean, is it Annie Leibovitz or is it Caitlyn that's made her look like that?
Or Photoshop, perhaps. I think all of those things combine in order to produce that image, but at the same time, people perceive that as reality, right? And people are talking about it as if it is who a trans woman is. And I think that even as we affirm people for being who they are, it's also really important to recognize that that the trans women, especially in the US, have very little access to surgery.
Right, so it's not as easy. Yeah, not as easy as it is for Caitlyn. Paris, let's just ask whether, because it feels to me like we're at a sort of maybe a slight tipping point. There have been one or two things happening. Consciousness of trans has increased enormously. Is that right, or is that just my perception?
Well, I may be the wrong person to ask because I'm in the middle of it, so it certainly seems like it is to me. But I think people are talking about this more and more now, aren't they? And I would say that where we are with the trans thing is probably where we were about 20 years ago with the gay community, and we had people coming out left, right, and centre and making names for themselves in public life. And I feel that trans people are feeling safe to do that. And just to come back to Caitlyn, you know, she doesn't represent, you know, your average trans person. There are huge economic barriers in place stopping from trans people accessing healthcare and the kind of privileges that she enjoys. But I think she's so important culturally, and we need this. We need this kind of visual, and that needs to be backed up by the kind of grassroots work that's being done to help improve trans people's lives.
Yeah. Meredith, what are the things that you think still need to be done? I hesitate to ask you this because we haven't got that long, but If you had your little
Sure.
shopping list of things to that still need to, if you like, the obstacles need to be removed, what would you put on it?
Sure. There are so many. So we have violence against trans women, we have issues regarding suicide, healthcare, employment, schools, bathrooms are a really big issue, and of course healthcare, which the issue that that is highlighted, I think, by Caitlyn Jenner. One of my friends, Lilith, talked about the fact that Caitlyn Jenner has had all of these cosmetic procedures, but she couldn't even come up with the money to be able to get life-affirming sexual reassignment surgery, which she's been dreaming of for years. So I think it's really important to put all of these things in perspective. And I agree with Paris that it's important to use the moment to be able to communicate all of these messages, but also keep in mind that there are a vast majority of trans women who still need an enormous amount of help.
Right. People sometimes say the glass is half full or half empty. I mean, how full, in your view, Meredith, is the glass?
I think that the glass can be full if we as activists and advocates, take the necessary steps in order to make it full, in order to use this moment to talk about transgender issues, in addition to affirming the identity of Caitlyn Jenner herself.
Paris, often language is an impediment to people feeling comfortable with the issue, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that a lot of well-meaning people tend to, that's the first thing. I think, do we say, for example, is it Paris Lee's transgender climbing a tree? Is it Paris Lee's transsexual climbing a tree? Just Paris Lee's climbing a tree, really. And I think that actually it's so easy to get kind of bogged down in what this all means and identity politics and intellectualise it all. But really, what we're seeing with this is that trans people are there, we exist, and the only real thing that we should be talking about is, are we prepared to give transgender people the same dignity and respect that we give everybody else? Are we going to afford them their human rights? And any sane, decent, right-minded person would say, yes, we do. So I think that what we really should be asking is, why are we not helping people younger so that they don't have to waste their whole lives as Caitlyn did?
Paris, Meredith, thank you both.